The wedding invitation sat on my parents' marble countertop, untouched for 3 weeks. I watched my mother slide it toward the edge with 2 fingers like it was contaminated. "This is your final chance, Deanne," she said, her voice cold and measured. "Call off this ridiculous wedding to that janitor, or you're no longer our daughter." My father stood by the window of their penthouse overlooking downtown Chicago, his back turned to me, silent. That silence hurt more than any words could. My younger sister Rebecca sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone, smirking. She had always enjoyed watching me fall from grace. The man they were talking about, the one they refused to even name, was Marcus. The kindest, most genuine person I had ever met. We had been together for 2 years, and yes, he worked as a building maintenance supervisor. My family saw only the uniform and the paycheck. They never asked about his character, his dreams, or why I loved him. My mother's ultimatum was clear. Marry Marcus, lose everything. My trust fund, my place in the family business, my last name's weight in social circles, even my bedroom in the family estate. "You'll be nobody," she added, her eyes narrowing. "You'll struggle, and when you come crawling back, don't expect us to open this door." I looked at the invitation one last time. Simple cardstock, modest design, a small venue in Lincoln Park. Nothing like the grand society weddings my family expected. I picked it up, folded it carefully, and slid it into my purse. Then I looked my mother directly in the eyes. "Then I guess I'm nobody," I said quietly and walked out. That was 8 years ago. I was 24 then, freshly graduated with a business degree I had earned on my own merit, despite my family's name smoothing certain paths. They cut me off completely. No calls, no emails, no acknowledgement at holidays. Rebecca made sure to post every family gathering on social media, smiling in designer clothes at luxury restaurants, always with the caption, "Family is everything." The message was clear. I no longer belonged. Marcus and I got married in a small ceremony with 12 people. His mother, his 2 brothers, a handful of close friends who actually cared about us. No photographer, no elaborate reception, just pizza afterward at a neighborhood spot we loved. I wore a simple white dress I had bought on sale. Marcus wore the only suit he owned, the one he had purchased for job interviews years earlier. When he saw me walking toward him, his eyes filled with tears. That moment, that pure, unfiltered joy on his face, was worth more than every dollar my family had ever held over my head. We moved into a tiny 1-bedroom apartment on the south side. The heating was inconsistent, the neighbors were loud, and the kitchen barely fit 1 person, let alone 2. But it was ours. I took a job as a junior analyst at a mid-sized consulting firm, entry-level position, no family connections to boost me. Marcus continued his work, taking on extra shifts whenever possible, saving every cent he could. We lived on strict budgets, meal prepped on Sundays, avoided unnecessary expenses. Some nights I would wake up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had made a catastrophic mistake. My mother's voice would echo in my head. "You'll be nobody." But then Marcus would shift beside me, his arm draped across my waist, and I would remember why I chose this life. 6 months into our marriage, Marcus came home with an idea. He had been talking to building owners during his maintenance rounds, noticing a pattern. Most small property managers struggled with vendor coordination, emergency repairs, tenant complaints. Everything was reactive, chaotic, expensive. "What if we created a system?" he asked one evening, sketching on a napkin at our cramped kitchen table. A centralized platform where property managers could schedule maintenance, track costs, communicate with tenants all in one place, preventive instead of reactive. I looked at his rough drawings, the excitement in his eyes. He had no technical background, no business training, but he understood the problem intimately. He had lived it every day for years. If you want the full truth, hit like so this story reaches more people. I pulled out my laptop. My degree had focused on operations and systems management. I knew how to build workflows, analyze inefficiencies, create scalable models. Together, we started mapping it out. Marcus brought the real-world knowledge, the pain points, the insider perspective. I brought the structure, the business framework, the strategic thinking my expensive education had provided. We spent every free moment building the concept. Marcus worked his maintenance shifts during the day. I handled my consulting job, and at night we became business partners. Our apartment transformed into a makeshift office, papers scattered across the floor, whiteboards propped against walls, laptops running constantly. We taught ourselves basic coding through free online courses, watched endless tutorials on software development, studied competitor products in the property management space. Most of them were clunky, outdated, designed by people who had never actually worked in building maintenance. We had an edge: authenticity. After 10 months of development, working with a freelance developer we paid in installments we could barely afford, we launched the beta version. Property Sync, we called it. Simple name, clear purpose. We approached 20 small property management companies in Chicago offering free trials. 16 ignored us completely. 3 said maybe later. 1 said yes. That one yes came from a woman named Catherine who managed 4 apartment buildings in Wicker Park. She was drowning in spreadsheets, missed maintenance calls, and tenant complaints piling up faster than she could address them. She gave us 30 days to prove the system worked. Marcus personally walked her through setup, customized features based on her specific needs, responded to every question within minutes. I built her detailed reports showing cost savings, efficiency improvements, response time reductions. After 30 days, Catherine's operational costs had dropped by 18%. Tenant satisfaction scores, which she had started tracking through our platform, increased noticeably. Emergency repair calls decreased because preventive maintenance was actually getting scheduled and completed. She signed a paid annual contract and referred us to 3 other property managers she knew. Those 3 became 6. 6 became 15. Within a year, we had 42 active clients across Chicago. Revenue was modest but growing steadily. We reinvested every dollar back into the platform, improving features, hiring a part-time customer support person, attending small industry trade shows. I left my consulting job to focus on Property Sync full-time. It was terrifying, giving up the stable paycheck, but the numbers justified the risk. Marcus eventually transitioned from maintenance work to running operations for our growing company. He knew the language, the culture, the unspoken rules of the industry. Property managers trusted him immediately because he had been in their shoes. By year 3, we had expanded beyond Chicago. Milwaukee, Indianapolis, Detroit, smaller Midwest cities where property management faced identical problems but had fewer resources. Our pricing model was deliberately affordable, designed for the small operators, the family-owned management companies, the people who got ignored by the giant enterprise software firms. Word of mouth became our strongest marketing tool. Property managers talked to each other at regional conferences, in online forums, during informal meetups. Property Sync kept appearing in conversations as the solution that actually understood their world. We hit 300 clients, then 600. Our apartment had long since become inadequate. We rented a small office space, hired 4 full-time employees, all people who believed in what we were building. Revenue crossed $1 million annually. We were profitable, sustainable, growing at a controlled pace. I handled strategy, sales, and client relations. Marcus managed product development, customer success, and operational systems. We complemented each other perfectly. The business became an extension of our partnership, built on mutual respect and shared vision. Comment justice if you believe she deserved what's coming. Year 5 brought the major turning point. A private equity firm that specialized in proptech investments had been quietly tracking emerging platforms in the property management space. They reached out, initially just for an informational meeting. The partner who contacted us, a sharp woman in her 40s named Linda, had done thorough research. She knew our client retention rate, our revenue growth trajectory, our market positioning. "You've built something genuinely valuable," Linda said during our first call. "Not just the software, but the trust. Property managers are notoriously resistant to change, yet you've converted them into advocates. That's rare." She flew to Chicago, spent a full day with us, toured our office, spoke with our team, reviewed our financials in detail. 2 weeks later, she presented an acquisition offer. They wanted to buy Property Sync outright. The number on the term sheet made my hands shake. $8.3 million. Marcus stared at the document for a long time, silent. We had started this in a cramped apartment with borrowed money and desperate hope. Now someone was offering us generational wealth for what we had created. We negotiated for 3 months. Not just on price, though we did push back and secured $9.1 million, but on terms that mattered to us. Our employees would be retained with improved benefits. The platform's affordability model would remain intact for at least 5 years. Existing clients would face no sudden price increases. Marcus and I would stay on for 2 years as advisors to ensure smooth transition. We signed the agreement on a cold Tuesday morning in November. The wire transfer hit our account that afternoon. $9.1 million minus taxes and legal fees left us with just over $6 million. We sat in our office afterward, staring at the bank balance on the screen, neither of us quite able to process it. Marcus broke the silence first. "Your mother said you'd be nobody," he said quietly, a slight smile forming. "I think we just proved her wrong." We didn't rush into extravagance. Years of careful budgeting and intentional spending had shaped our habits. We paid off the small debts we still carried, set aside funds for future investments, established trusts for our employees' children's education. Then we bought a house. Not a mansion, not some ostentatious display, but a beautiful 3-bedroom home in a quiet neighborhood we had always admired. Large windows, a real kitchen, a backyard where we could finally breathe. The day we moved in, Marcus carried me over the threshold exactly like he had done at our tiny apartment 8 years earlier. Some traditions mattered more than square footage. For 18 months, we heard nothing from my family. No acknowledgement, no curiosity about what I had been doing, no interest in whether I had survived their rejection. Rebecca continued her social media performance, documenting her life of inherited wealth and carefully curated privilege. My parents appeared occasionally in her posts, always at exclusive events, charity galas where they bought recognition with money they hadn't personally earned. Then Property Sync's acquisition became public. The sale was covered in several business publications, local Chicago news, a few national tech outlets reporting on successful PropTech exits. Our names were attached, our story included, the bootstrap-to-exit narrative that reporters loved. My LinkedIn profile exploded with connection requests. Former college acquaintances suddenly remembered we had been close. Distant relatives I hadn't heard from in a decade sent messages congratulating me. And then, on a Saturday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number, Chicago area code. I almost didn't answer. "Deanne," my mother's voice, careful and measured, exactly as I remembered. "It's been far too long. Your father and I have been thinking about you. We'd love to have you over for dinner, catch up properly, perhaps next weekend." No apology, no acknowledgement of 8 years of silence, just an invitation delivered as if we had simply been busy and lost touch. Type yes if you want to see all targets hit at once. I felt Marcus's hand on my shoulder. He had been listening, his expression unreadable. "I'll think about it," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I'll call you back." I hung up before she could respond. Marcus and I talked for hours that night. He never told me what to do, never pushed his own feelings onto my family situation. That wasn't his way. He just listened, asked questions, helped me think through what I actually wanted. "Do you need closure?" he asked at one point. "Or do you need them to hear what they did?" I realized I needed neither. Their validation had stopped mattering years ago, but curiosity pulled at me. I wanted to see what desperation looked like on people who had spent their lives in comfortable superiority. I called my mother back 3 days later and accepted the dinner invitation. She sounded relieved, almost pleased. "Wonderful, just you though, family only." The implication was clear. Marcus wasn't invited. "Then I'm not coming," I said simply. There was a pause. I could hear her recalculating, adjusting her approach. "Of course, Marcus is welcome. I misspoke. We'd love to see you both." We arrived at their penthouse the following Saturday evening. The building looked exactly as I remembered, intimidating glass and steel, doormen in uniforms, the kind of lobby designed to make visitors feel small. Marcus wore a tailored suit we had purchased from a designer boutique, custom-fitted, expensive without being flashy. I wore a simple, elegant dress, minimal jewelry, my hair styled professionally. We looked successful, but we weren't performing. The elevator ride up felt longer than it actually was. When the doors opened directly into their private floor, my mother stood waiting. She had aged, subtle lines around her eyes, her hair more silver than I remembered. Her smile was practiced, the kind she deployed at charity events. "Deanne, you look wonderful." She embraced me briefly, stiffly, then turned to Marcus. "And Marcus, welcome." Her eyes scanned him quickly, cataloging the suit, the watch, the quiet confidence he carried. I saw the slight confusion on her face. This wasn't the struggling janitor she had expected. My father appeared from the living room, drink in hand. He nodded at me, shook Marcus's hand with professional courtesy, said nothing of substance. Rebecca emerged last, her expression guarded. She had gained weight, her usual sharp edges softened. Her outfit screamed expensive but looked uncomfortable. We sat down for dinner in their formal dining room. The table could seat 12 but felt cold with just the 5 of us. The meal was catered, elaborate courses served by staff my parents employed for such occasions. Conversation remained superficial for the first 20 minutes. Weather, safe current events, neutral observations about the city. Then my mother made her move. "We've been reading about your success," she said, setting down her fork. "Very impressive, building a company from nothing, selling it for such a significant sum. You've always been resourceful." Resourceful. The word hung in the air, stripped of any real acknowledgement. Not proud, not regretful for doubting me, just resourceful, as if I had gotten lucky finding spare change in couch cushions. "We didn't build it from nothing," Marcus said calmly, his voice even. "We built it from experience, strategy, and years of work your family said would lead nowhere." My mother's smile tightened. My father took a long sip of his wine. Rebecca stared at her plate. "Yes, well," my mother continued, recovering quickly. "The reason we wanted to see you is that we've been discussing family matters. Your father's business has faced some unexpected challenges. Market shifts, regulatory changes, increased competition. We're restructuring, exploring new investment opportunities." She paused, glancing at my father for support. He nodded but said nothing. "We thought perhaps you might be interested in contributing, investing in the family business. With your recent liquidity and business experience, it could be mutually beneficial. A way to reconnect, rebuild what was lost." There it was. The real reason for the dinner, the phone call, the sudden warmth after 8 years of frozen silence. They didn't want me. They wanted my money. Share this video so communities understand what was hiding. I looked at Marcus. He gave me the smallest nod, letting me know he was with me no matter what I said next. I turned back to my mother, keeping my voice measured and calm, exactly the tone she had always used to deliver her cruelest judgments. "When I left this house 8 years ago, you told me I would be nobody. You said I would struggle, and when I came crawling back, you wouldn't open the door. Do you remember that?" My mother's face remained composed, but something flickered behind her eyes. "Deanne, we were concerned. Parents worry. We wanted what was best for you." "You wanted control," I corrected. "You wanted me to marry someone from your approved list, someone whose last name carried weight at your country club, someone whose family connections could expand your business network. You didn't care about my happiness, my judgment, or my future. You cared about maintaining your social standing." My father finally spoke. "You were young, impressionable. That man was a janitor." "That man," Marcus interjected, his voice still calm but carrying an edge now, "was the one who identified the business opportunity. I understood property management because I lived it. Deanne brought the strategic framework and execution. Together, we built something worth $9 million. What have you built lately that wasn't inherited or maintained through old money connections?" The silence that followed was heavy. Rebecca shifted uncomfortably. My mother's practiced smile vanished completely. "We're offering you an opportunity," my father said, his tone hardening. "Family invests in family. It's how generational wealth is preserved." "Generational wealth," I repeated slowly. "The wealth your grandfather built, that your father maintained, that you've simply managed not to destroy. You didn't create it. You didn't earn it through innovation or risk. You inherited a foundation and convinced yourselves that made you superior." I stood up from the table. Marcus followed immediately. "When I needed family, you weren't there. When I was building something real, working 18-hour days in a cramped apartment, eating ramen to save money for software development, you were posting photos at luxury resorts. You didn't call to check if I was alive. You didn't send a card on my wedding anniversary. You erased me because I chose love over status." My mother stood as well, her composure cracking slightly. "We're trying to make amends, extend an olive branch." "No," I said firmly. "You're trying to access my bank account." "There's a difference. If you wanted amends, you would have called 2 years ago, 4 years ago, any moment before you read about the acquisition. You would have apologized for the cruelty, acknowledged the rejection, admitted you were wrong. Instead, you invited me to dinner and pitched me an investment opportunity." Rebecca finally spoke, her voice small. "Deanne, they're struggling. The business is barely holding on. Dad took on bad debt, made poor acquisitions. They need help." If this shocked you, comment karma below. I looked at my sister, seeing something I hadn't expected. Vulnerability. She wasn't smirking anymore. She was scared. The perfect life she had documented online was apparently crumbling behind the filter. "Then they should hire a consultant," I said, not unkindly. There are excellent firms that specialize in business turnarounds. I can send recommendations. I picked up my purse. Marcus placed his hand on the small of my back, a gesture of quiet support. You made a choice 8 years ago, I continued, looking directly at my parents. You chose your pride, your social expectations, your narrow definition of success over your daughter. That choice had consequences. I built a life without you. A beautiful, meaningful life with a partner who sees my value, who challenges me to grow, who celebrates my wins and supports me through losses. I don't need your approval anymore. And I certainly don't need to rescue you from the consequences of your own decisions. My father's face had turned red. My mother stood frozen, perhaps for the first time in her life, unsure what to say. The door you refused to open, I added, turning toward the elevator. It stays closed from my side now. Marcus and I rode down in silence. When we stepped out into the Chicago night, the air felt lighter, cleaner. He took my hand, squeezed it gently. How do you feel? He asked. Free, I answered honestly. We walked to our car, parked on the street where 8 years ago I had left everything behind. That scared young woman who had chosen love over money had become someone I was genuinely proud of. Not because of the bank balance, not because of the business exit, but because I had built a life on my own terms. We drove home to our house, the one we had earned together. That night, I blocked my family's numbers, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Some chapters close not with dramatic confrontation, but with quiet resolution. They had raised me to believe worth came from status, connections, and inherited wealth. Marcus had shown me it came from integrity, partnership, and work that mattered. I chose his definition. If you liked this story, hit that like button right now. Comment which part hit you hardest, and subscribe because these stories of people who chose themselves over family expectations need to be told. Your support helps us reach others who need to hear they made the right choice. Thank you for watching.